everybody. Welcome to the session. Communicate IIT Kharagpur, we are extremely happy to host Mr. Vishnu today for today's session on how to be the CEO of your career via networking, LinkedIn, optimization, and building mindset for long-term career management to ensure increased chances of success in your upcoming careers. Vishnu is the CEO and co-founder of Asset World Private Limited, multi-award winning and prestigious Techstars backed fintech based out of London. Prior to starting up, Vishnu worked in management consulting at Bain and Company, led the product teams at UK's first fintech unicorn, and he holds 3 master degrees, one in physics from BITS Pilani, one in nanotechnology from Cambridge University, and business management from London Business School and UC Berkeley. We are delighted to have Vishnu, and I would like to now hand it over to Vishnu for his exciting session.
Thank you, Pradipti. Thanks a lot. I'm very, very excited to be talking to you guys, the country's best students. So without further ado, I'll go straight into it. So let's just quickly understand a little bit about your pain points so that I'm able to tailor the pitch appropriately. So yeah, you'll see the first question on your screen. You just need to pick one of the options. So what is your biggest pain point at the moment? Option number one, is it to build your profile? Option number two, to create more career opportunities. Okay, so building a profile essentially means, to add experiences to your CV so that you're able to get the right internships and so on and so forth. I think we'll just give another maybe 10-15 seconds. I think we've seen 70% voted already. Okay, wonderful. So yeah, you guys are now able to see the results. So most of you have said, almost 40% have said to find what you love doing. Well, don't we all search for that? And then I think the next one is how to build your profile, and finally how to create more career opportunities. So very, very meta question. I think that's the biggest pain point, followed by some tactical stuff that we can do in the short term. Okay, cool. Now, I think one more question, just to understand who is in the audience. Is it first year, second year, and so on? This should be quick. Okay. Yeah, we've got over 80% voting on this one. So majority seem to be in their second year, with some first year and then a couple from the others. Okay, good. Okay, guys, so this is what we'll be looking at today. So I've actually prepared quite a lot of material to cover through, but let's see. The idea is to keep this like super interactive, not a monologue. So as and when you're getting questions, feel free to start typing those into the chat or into the Q&A section, and we'll cover it. For me, I think success would be to get to know you guys personally and continue to stay connected via LinkedIn over the next few years. So number one, we look at the importance of long-term career management, then the importance of networking, which is what you typically learn in a business school. So for some of you who are maybe thinking, what's an MBA? Should I even do it? India, abroad? I think there are, and how will networking help in the long run? LinkedIn optimization is the more is the more tactical thing that we all need to have. I think it predominantly dominates how people do recruiting right now. And then, of course, the last one, I want to introduce you to a new method of storytelling, especially during your interviews, which is the FIT model. So with that said, let's go into the long-term career management aspect. So because I'm also from this system of engineering, and then you figure out, first you do engineering, then you figure out what you want to do in life, right? That's uh, I think for good or bad, there is that system in place in India. So there are essentially two types of career strategy planning methodologies in use. The left hand side, you have your template approach, then you have the leap of faith approach. Essentially, in a template approach, you basically do what's the most popular thing in and around your environment. So if it's engineering, it's engineering. If it's IIT, it's IIT, or BITS, or whatever, medicine, etc. You typically tend to follow role models who you've seen grow up around you. So nothing wrong with that. And it's got several pros. There are also some cons. From the pros perspective, obviously, you don't have to answer the question, what do I really want to do in my life? Or as you guys said, literally poll question one is, I want to find what I love to do. You can postpone that question if you're following the template approach for a couple of years, because it's really hard to figure out what is it that you genuinely want to dedicate your life to early on in your life. Then you also get a chance to build some diverse skill set by maybe like trying out engineering or doing like arts or other courses where you're able to get exposed to different things just to figure out what works, what doesn't work. That's also another advantage of following the template. So typically templates could be something like consulting, banking, product management, venture capital, entrepreneurship. This whatever is cool, whatever is in the zeitgeist at the moment when you are studying or when you are in college. Now, there are certain cons of the template approach. The template approach doesn't necessarily make you a subject matter expert because you don't get to go super deep. You become like a good generalist. You know a little bit about a lot of things. Then the other thing is this: whatever career path you choose, if you're not careful about withdrawing at some point, it's very easy to get sucked into the corporate wheel. Basically, it might be like you actually get into, let's say, McKinsey and Company, but you don't want to be a consultant for the rest of your life. You only did it because everybody else around you thought it's the sexiest thing you could do. And instead of getting out in 2 years, let's say you get out after 10 years. So you wasted 8 years running somebody else's race. So that's the con of the template approach. And the other thing is, you might not necessarily achieve happiness. You might get all the great brands and great pedigree, etc., on your CV. But deep down, you know that maybe this is not a race meant for me. So those are some of the pros and cons of the template approach. Now, let's just contrast that with the leap of faith approach. Now, here, as the name suggests, these people are they are driven by fear of not trying, as opposed to the template approach people who are driven by fear of missing out. And in the leap of faith, you sort of know what you want to do. You're lucky enough to have that gumption, and you want to like give it a shot. It requires lots of planning. If you are from upper middle class India, then it also requires financial and logistical planning. It's not, you might have student loans, you might have financial responsibilities. So it requires a little bit of thinking early on in your career. And not everybody may be able to break free. You'll have to create that ecosystem around you and your own personal situation that enables you to take the leap of faith. So it requires a little bit more planning. The advantage is, of course, you get to go deep. So let's pick an example. Let's take, if you want to be an actor and you know that early on in your life, you can give it like 10, 15 years and you become like a super deep subject matter expert. Same with PhD in, let's say, physics or whatever. So both have their pros and cons. You might be a bit happier, but again, it requires greater planning. In both the cases, of course, the only currency you're expending is time. That's your biggest like investment here, right? Like you want to optimize for the path that leads you to the biggest return on your time as an investment, and hopefully something that makes you happy. Because ultimately, if you're not happy, then it will be hard for you to sustain it and do it for a long period of time. There is, however, a middle path where you can basically do the template approach because you don't know what else to do. You're not one of those lucky individuals that have found their calling at the age of like 16 or 20. So you do the template, and then you build your network, you learn about the world, you increase your skill set, and eventually you feel, you know what, I think I've got enough experience in this industry. This is not for me in the long run. Let me actually start making baby steps towards something else that I enjoy. And you leverage the assets from your template approach, whether it's your connections, your network, your skills, your financial, your bank balance, because you've worked for somebody for a couple of years, to make those baby pivots in the direction of some exploring something which might be your scene. And I think that's the approach that I have taken. There is no right approach, and in like most great things in life, the answer is always it depends. It depends on your situation, circumstances, etc. So the objective of this session today is only to give you a new way of thinking, not to give you the answers. You're extremely smart, probably, actually not probably, definitely smarter than me. So the best way what I can do is just provide you a little bit of perspective with my 10 or 12 years more experience that I have compared to you, because of the world that I have seen. Some mistakes, hopefully, that I've made, you can learn from them and not repeat them. This is the biggest takeaway from this whole session today. If you just remember one thing, I want you guys to remember this slide, which is your career is a marathon and not a sprint. What I mean by that is the average person who is in their 20s today is going to be living longer compared to the previous generation, notwithstanding COVID. That means you guys can no longer retire at the age of 60 like your parents. You will actually be working maybe somewhere around 70 or 75. And if you're unlucky, maybe up to the age of 80. So suddenly, you don't have to make decisions at the age of 21 that will determine the rest of your life, because you're now looking at a 5 to 6 decade long career. So when you look at it from that perspective, it doesn't, the pressure to get the very first job absolutely right, or the pressure to get the higher degree absolutely right, it starts going away. Because in the previous generation, we had a very clear 3-stage model of life: education, work, retirement. In the multi-stage model, some of you, I'm guessing, are already working as freelance developers or designers or coders. I know a bunch of my bits juniors are. So if anybody is already doing work that makes money, you can just ping in the chat. I'm curious about what it is that you guys are doing. Are you teaching math, or are you doing something else with your skills you're learning? So basically, you're already exploring while studying. And then you might even get a job. Then you might decide to go back to school again, transition into like higher degree or higher degrees, and change countries, perhaps even get self-employed, and maybe one day even move to a format of work where you're not employed with like a Google for full time. You might actually do one day of the week at a tech company, the second day at an arts company, and the third day at something else. So complete portfolio approach where you've got multiple revenue streams coming in, because you guys have varied interests. You just don't want to be doing just coding or whatever. Eventually, even when you retire, you might have built up like the skill set and the knowledge to actually give back to the society, whether it's through running an NGO or joining the board of a nonprofit, or even becoming an angel investor and encouraging other juniors of yours, and so on and so forth. So it's a very complicated, messy scenario. And this is your future. So the good news is you don't have to figure out what you want to do right now. But the bad news is this requires lots of planning. This is not like, oh, isme naukri dal lo, and yeah, Fiverr, got it. Life set ho jayega. I think those days are gone, because you will constantly have to learn. Like literally, the biotech you're learning today will be obsolete in 5 years. If you're reading nanotech, it's probably obsolete. And coding, though, I mean, you guys know about this even more. So there are, just like any, are there any sports people in the group here? Just yeah, just raise your hand if there are. Just like any marathon, this requires lots of planning, training, and you can use your career's first few years or maybe the decade as something that warms you up for the rest of your career. So here are the 4 important things that you need to take care of. Number 1, productive assets. This includes your skills and knowledge, your university, your degree, whatever you're learning. So it comes part of professional network and professional reputation. Are you somebody who works hard, who does a good job when they are given projects and so on and so forth, who take pride in their quality of work? In fact, your motto seems to be that, right? Jnanam, jnana, karma, jnanam, what is it? 1 second. It's one of my favorite things. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. So that's exactly, I think, bang on. I don't think I could have expressed it better than that. So that's what you're doing in the first set of assets. Then, obviously, financial assets are important. This is like, I mean, every day you see in the news. I think even today I saw some IIT students are getting more money by working in India as opposed to going abroad. So return on your hard work is important. You need to have salary, benefits, savings, all of that. Just think about it. You need to have a pension that supports you when you're 70 or 75 and you are still expected to live after that. So the financial planning is very, very important. Nobody talks about that when you're in college. Then third bit is vitality assets, so health. Right now you guys are very young and you can do night outs and all the crazy stuff before exams. But I think as the decades start coming up, you need to take care of yourself, work out, take care of mental health. I think that's become a much bigger problem compared to back in the day. So, and also take care of your relationships, family. In this whole rat race, sometimes you might not have the time to devote to your parents, to your loved ones, siblings, and it actually has a negative impact. If you don't have a support system, then you might not make the great career trajectory that you want to. So don't ignore that. And finally, transformation assets. So this is the spiritual, the meta angle. You need to know who you are. I mean, ultimately, there needs to be that element of reflection, spirituality, or self-awareness as well. Sorry, even the Eastern mystics put it, because otherwise you're just running somebody else's race. You might get into your proverbial Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, McKinsey, Bain. But if that is not the right race for you, there is no happiness, which means you can't do 5 decades of that. So it's important to somehow listen to that voice, inculcate that inner voice, and believe in your gut, and take some risks, etc. And we'll go through how we can do that shortly. Okay, so those are the 4 key assets. Here, very quickly, I'm just trying to bring a multi-stage multi-stage career to life here. So for example, each block here basically represents a career pivot or a career move. So currently, let's assume most of you guys are here in the first block, and you probably get placed via campus placements. You get your first job. You might not like it because luck typically plays a big role on campus, which companies come that day and whether you perform well on the interview, blah, blah, blah. Then you might choose to get a second job in a new country or maybe in the same country, higher education, third job. You work, and then you maybe decide to do an MBA after a few years, change industry again. You get the idea. So it's pretty complicated, lots of different jobs here. And by the way, so unlike your parents' generation where they were at like State Bank of India for 15 years, you guys are not going to do that. Maximum 2 to 3 years. In fact, I think in the US, at least the millennials are only staying, the median age time at a company is now 4.5. So even if you take 50, divide that by 4.5, you can figure out the number of transitions you make. So what's important? I think there are certain things which are important. You can see in these blue boxes. Try and do something on the side for a hobby or an income. It's important because what you want to do in life is not an intellectual problem. It's actually, you have to hit the real world. So what I mean by that is, if I have like the world's most powerful supercomputer or quantum computer, and then I feed in all the variables, I want a job that pays me X. I want where I live in a particular location, 9 to 6, my work-life balance, and then you let the computer do its magic, then it's not going to come up with like the ideal job for you. That's not how it works. You need to go and give it a go. You should like try, dip your toes into the water, see if you like that. Do you like coding? Do you like business development? Do you like sales? Do you like digital marketing? Whatever it is. Then try and like become a mentor for somebody else. Teach them, because that's the best way to learn. Whenever this is a Richard Feynman technique, when you know something and you're trying to express that to somebody else, it forces you to bridge gaps in your own understanding. And if you can't explain it simply, then you don't know it well enough. So try practicing that skill. Finally, don't forget about the importance of laying a strong foundation, financial foundation. Because what happens is, if you are reckless with money, then you will not be able to do all these transitions because it's a golden handcuff situation. The reasons that come up is, oh, I've got a mortgage, I've got kids, and I'm not planned for it, or I've got a massive student loan. I haven't done enough prior financial planning, therefore I have to stick into this job for another 2 years. So it becomes artificial shackles. So hopefully you get the idea. I mean, one thing is it can be extremely exciting. It's a journey, it's an adventure into the unknown, and you are obviously some of the world's brightest students. So you will relish this journey, but at the same time, just be mindful of some of the pitfalls. Now we switch to the importance of networking. I think back in the day there was a saying which says chance favors the prepared mind. That is still important, but chance also favors the connected mind. It's very important to, especially in a world which is becoming so small day by day, given globalization and internet and what we're able to do. It's important to focus and understand what networking is. Most people don't really understand networking, so we'll try and go a little bit into that today. Before that, let me just take one quick poll here. What is it that you guys look for when you network right now? Just imagine your IIT KGP network. What is the primary determinant of chemistry in a professional relationship? Okay, the votes are coming in. All right, maybe another few seconds. Yeah, I think we should try and get the voting at least 80%, because then we'll be able to derive some nice insights. So we're almost there. 75% voted. Okay, that's fine. I think we can close this poll now. Okay, so now I think majority of you have said that primary determinant of chemistry in a professional relationship is intelligence, and then the next is similarity. This was actually a trick question. So generally, human beings are very lazy. So we tend to pick people that are similar to us in our networks. And you'll probably see this very much in several circles. If you look at a company and if there's one IIT guy, he'll bring a bunch of IIT guys. Similarly, one BITS guy, he brings a bunch of BITS guys. Now, you guys have chosen intelligence. So basically, that's actually a subset of similarity in this case, because you're smart. So naturally, you're attracted to more people who are smart. Here is a problem. It's not necessary that the smart people have always all the right answers and right opportunities. It might be the case that you're missing out on some wonderful opportunities because you're not looking at people that are not necessarily intelligent or book smart, but also probably on the other end of the spectrum. Just something to think about, because your network is as good as your criteria that you're choosing. Okay, then here are some other mindset traps that prevent us from networking. A lot of people, when they hear the word networking, they think suits and blazers and like James Bond-esque smoothness that is required in conversation, extremely fluent and very smooth and silky. And in addition to that, we also feel that this is not real work. It's almost transactional. You're using people. It's inauthentic. Also, the payoff is not immediate. Just because you've added somebody else to your network today, you won't get the job tomorrow. And some of us also feel that relationships should be spontaneous. We should like the people that we meet and then add them on LinkedIn or whatever, and then connect with them and spend more time. Nothing wrong with this, but let me give you a slightly different way of looking at networking, which removes all of this negative halo around networking. So here is what the greatest people, or in my view, the greatest networkers do. So these guys, oh, actually, sorry, before that, let's look at your networking skills right now. So one is weak, five is strong. So how would you guys rate your networking abilities? Okay. Yeah, this is good. We're getting answers much faster now. All right, I think we can close this particular poll. So that's a nice looking curve, almost a decent bell. So mostly people have said two and then three. Just one person I think has said five. So let's try by the end of this session. We'll try and move you guys one point higher. So here is the secret. I see someone's raised their hand. Maybe you can just ask the question, and then we'll come back to it shortly. Yeah, Rohan, please go ahead and like type your question. So the biggest secret, what the greats do is this: they actually use networking as an opportunity to add value to the other person or give them something in return, not to take but to give. It's paradoxical, but that is why it works. So there are three types of people in any professional interaction. So there are the givers, there are the takers, and the matchers. And givers are usually the most successful without any expectation, because they become high net giving. Now, I don't have a scientific methodology to prove this. I'm going to rely on the principle of karma. And if you do good, then eventually the universe conspires to make it happen. There must be a lot of correlation data out there, but at least from personal experience and people that I have seen over the last, let's say, 10, 15 years, I am 100% a believer of this. The more you give, the more you get. Now, whenever you're going into any interaction, always ask yourself, how can I add value to this person? Doesn't matter if it's somebody who's like 10 years senior to you or 20 years senior to you, because everybody has a unique point of view on the world. Everybody has a unique perspective and they have a unique skill set. So you need to value that, and then you can just say, okay, how can I help you? And I'm sure nobody is going to be like, oh no, you're just too young to help me. In fact, if anything, the most successful people are open to ideas and value. And here is the principle in action. It's called the reciprocity effect. For people that are curious about a little bit more psychology, you can look it up. If you give something to someone without expecting anything, most human beings tend to feel indebted, or they feel a certain sense of gratitude. So they want to give back to you. Probably that's what is at the back of the success of the people who give first. I want to give you a little bit of theory on networks just to make sure that you understand what kind of networks are there and then what is your network style, so that then you can work on it. So it's going to be very quick. So three major types of networks: bridging, clique, and rainmaker. The red dot is you. In case of a bridging network, you basically have different clusters that you're all exposed to. So for example, you're here. This the first, let's use some. Yeah. So this one, for example, is your KGP network. This could be your school network. This could be your online chess network, and this could be like your some other network. So none of these networks actually know about the other people, so they're completely parallel universes. Then there is the clique network where you are here, and then this probably is more like a typical campus situation where you have first yearites, batchmates, wingies, and maybe some seniors. They sort of know each other a little bit. So in this case, there's a little bit of a cohesion happening. There are more than one person who can talk about you as an individual and back up the opinion that they have about you. Obviously, in the case of bridging network, you get the advantages, you get information which is like completely different from different parts of the world. And if you do an international degree, then there could be complete like networks. For example, I have my BITS network, then I have my Cambridge network, then my LBS network, my Berkeley network, and other networks like my cricket team network and so on. So the advantage with this is you get access to diverse sources of information. Okay. And then finally, your rainmaker is basically an individual that has both of these. So they are actively seeking out new parallel universes because that's how they get exposed to new ideas. And they also have like a solid clique that they can depend on. Like my best friends are my batch mates from BITS, for example. So with that said, let's go to the next one. Another important concept you need to know is strong and weak ties, especially for your social networks. So, obviously, most of you guys are on Instagram, perhaps even Facebook, and a bunch of other apps. Uh, in the case of strong networks, these networks provide the bandwidth over the short distances. So you are here. These are your like literally your wingy or your best friend in your department or your batchmate, etc. And these networks typically enable you to have trust. These people are super loyal. They will hold you when you're falling down, and this kind of network helps you get more number of job offers if you're already in career. So an example is if you are in a company and you need to move from consultant 1 to consultant 2, then the people who are your immediate bosses or who are your direct reports, they need to like talk about you and advocate for you to get you that promotion. So this strong ties really help in that scenario. However, if you are in a situation where you're looking for more number of interviews, so you want to like get different interviews from different companies in different parts of the world, I think your weak ties are very, very important. And weak ties are basically, they provide you the wavelength over long distances. So here you are in the middle. You've got a friend who works, let's say, who's from Xavier's Kolkata. They have a friend who's gone to JP Morgan or some other company in the UK. So through them, you don't know them well enough, but they will tell you, oh, by the way, my company is hiring, and then they share on their Facebook or LinkedIn, and then because you're connected to this person, you get exposed to that information. So for new opportunities, it's very important to focus on your weak ties. Now, I would like you to just reflect upon how you selected similarity and intelligence. Now, if you restrict yourself to those two things, which most of us are guilty of doing, then you will miss out on the weak ties. So it's very important to actively work on weak ties. So now there are basically two styles of networking. You could be a surface networker, which means you have a lot of weak ties but no strong ties. That also is a problem because then people don't know you well enough to push you ahead once you get the interview. And what can you do in order to improve your networking style? You do consider shared activities and exchanging favors, spending more time with individuals to go deeper into your relationship with them. They should be able to know who you are, what your dreams are, and blah, blah, blah. Similarly, if you're a deep networker, you're someone that, you know what, I only have three friends and like they know everything about me. They're like my mother or brother from another mother type or sister from another father situation. That's very useful. But you also are going to be missing out on wonderful opportunities because you're not getting exposed to new information. And not just opportunities, but new information is key to break your own biases of the world. If you're constantly surrounded by people who only think the only way to career success is maybe doing consulting or banking, then you are obviously missing out on people who are entrepreneurs or people who are actually freelance workers. Because there's many ways of dealing with the world, right? So that information is power. It breaks those prejudices that you may have. Wonderful. So at this point, I think what we've done with LifeClass is essentially we are trying to bring at the undergrad level itself people from different parts of the world studying different courses and creating these week tie opportunities. So and you can exchange information with them. I'm sure there is LinkedIn, but I get the feeling that you're still pretty insular during your first few years of your undergrad. So it might not be a bad idea to join the LifeClass community, and it's a free community, so anybody can join. I think Pune will paste the link shortly. Oh yeah, wonderful. He's already done it. Okay, so at this point, I think because we've covered the first two parts of the session, maybe I'll take a couple of questions just to make sure that you guys are following and my speed is correct. Do you want me to slow down, speed up, etc.? So perhaps you guys can, Pune, maybe you can give them the access to raise their hand and unmute themselves.
Yes, all the participants, anybody who wants to ask a question, they can raise a hand and I'll give you access to speak.
We'll spend like just 2 minutes here because I have another two sections to cover. So if there's no questions, do let me know. But don't feel shy. Again, as I said, uh, uh, if you talk, then even the other people on this webinar will know who you are. Because right now, I'm pretty sure you don't know all the 60 people who are here. Okay. Speed is all right. Fine. That's good. And I think a couple of people had raised, oh, well, we have one question here. So should one go with skills or interest? It's a lot more complicated than that. I think, and maybe you can ask a more elaborate question. So it depends on what stage of life you're at. Initially, if you don't know what your interest is, then go after skills, build those initial assets, and then start moving in the direction of your interest. Because you'll have to pay the bills also, right? You can't just say I'll only do one kind of a job, sadly. Okay, any other Q&A? All right, so let's move on. Let's do the next section. So here we're talking about LinkedIn. How many of you are not on LinkedIn? Just sort of curiosity, you can just raise your hand. Or not active on LinkedIn? Oh, wow, okay. Damn, look at that. I should be charging LinkedIn for doing some free promo for them. Okay, fine. So I think it's not a bad idea to make a profile on LinkedIn. And for those of you who are already on it, you'll appreciate why it's important to be there. You need to discover new opportunities. But I'm trying to show you something else. I'm showing you LinkedIn from the other side, the recruiter's perspective. So today, I think most of the recruitment is done online, job portals, etc. But your virtual CV, in a way, is your LinkedIn profile. For good or bad. And I know you guys are the generation which is the Instagram generation, so this might feel a bit clunky, but definitely start with a profile. So if I'm a recruiter at a company and I want to find people that have product marketing in their title, or I'm looking to hire people who want to be for this role, so I start searching product marketing and then I hit enter. You can see there's like nearly 9 million candidates that are showing up, which is incredibly big number, right? Like how do you, and I'm the HR person, I've been given the job of putting together a list of 25 candidates that the head of product at the company can go through and then invite maybe 10 of them for interview and eventually make 2 or 3 offers. So the important thing here to understand is LinkedIn is all about keywords. So for example, the reason why this person is showing up at the very top is she's got product marketing right in her summary. Then her industry also has that, her current role, previous role. And by the way, she's also a first degree connection. So all of these sort of like put her at the top of the pecking order. And now if you just go towards the right, 17 of these people had actually applied to your company in the past. And 66 are engaging with your talent brand, which means, you know how on LinkedIn you can follow a company? If you follow, let's say Google, and somebody from Google is looking for product marketing, then the people who follow also show up separately, which is smart. So if you're interested in a particular company or dream company, please follow them on LinkedIn. That can't hurt you. Now, let me just share with you like the shortest secrets to basically improving your LinkedIn profile by an order of magnitude right now. You can actually do it as we speak. First, let's say, because most of you are still undergrad and you're your first job, let's assume, I'm just taking an example, you want to be a management consultant. So you're not a management consultant already, but you know that the keywords work based on consulting or data science or whatever. So you can use the word aspiring management consultant, or you can say future management consultant, or aspiring data scientist, aspiring anything, whatever you care for. This is not lying. This is what you're projecting to the world, that this is what you want to do. But the smart trick or hack here is you will show up if anybody's searching for it. If you don't do this, then you obviously will not show up because those keywords are not hitting. So very simple technique. Make sure you've got the desired job title in your headline if you're recruiting, even in your summary, and then link the job description keyword. So if you've got like the dream jobs, go to the job description and find out the most frequently occurring keywords and put those in your summary and headline, and also in your experience. Just because you're an undergrad doesn't mean you can't talk about your sales experience, your marketing experience, your business leadership. It's all about like putting it together in the right manner. So you appreciate that it's a keyword game. And please make sure you have a complete profile. I'm going to quickly switch to my profile just to show you what a sample profile could be. And also try and pick your own favorite LinkedIn profiles from your own KGP seniors or others that you admire, and try to see how they've made up their model profile, and then just try to emulate that, get like elements of it. Uh, and then definitely get some recommendations. Ask your seniors, like your fourth yearites if you're in a first year, whoever you worked with in clubs and departments, to give you a recommendation, a professional looking one. It's always nice to see recommendations. And the other thing is, well, it might be a bit too early, but just in case, it's important to stay focused on your profile. So if you're looking for a particular type of job and actively looking, then keep it like direct and focused at that, instead of saying you're an entrepreneur, product manager, business development, comma, TED speaker, comma, leadership coach, comma, whatever. Nothing wrong with that, especially if you're not actively looking, then you're just letting the world know who you are. But when you're actively job searching, imagine the recruitment manager who's been given the task of shortlisting project managers. They will pick the person that is making it easier for them by just saying, I'm a project manager, that's what I do, instead of like a generalist who's got everything there. So it's very hard to say, are you a 20% entrepreneur or 50% development guy, whatever. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me just quickly flip to LinkedIn. Okay, so this is my profile. By no means it's a perfect profile, but I think I just want to illustrate a couple of points. So please keep the picture very simple. The face should be clear, no goggles and none of the crazy action, and write a summary that makes sense for you. And in the about, you can give like a very brief like summary of your journey, especially if you're not like recruiting actively. Try and write articles on LinkedIn if it's very important. If there's anything that's been written about you, try and like add it to your featured article list. They have a button for that. It's very important to build content. I guess you guys are like the Uber content generation. So I'm sure you're consuming a lot, but how many of you are actually writing? Because as a STEM kid, I know that we are not really taught how to write early on. So we should work on our writing skills. So try and get every opportunity to write something. It can be writing about the life in an IIT, a KGP biotechnology student, life in the day of, or day in the life of, something like that. Basically, you want to like whatever you're doing at that point, and then talk about your experiences and internships, and then if you've got any awards at college and any exchanges. I know you guys do these international exchange programs in Germany through the DART fellowships, etc. So definitely talk about it. If you've got any publications, write about it, and any leadership, etc., etc. Talk about licenses and certifications that you may have got, volunteer experience you have, get people to endorse you and you endorse them, and then finally give and take recommendations. So I usually try and like give recommendations for people that do a good job, and then talk about your courses, whatever courses you've done. then any publications you may have, awards, languages. You can follow companies or individuals. So you can see this is what I was talking about earlier. Uh, whatever that you think you want to follow them and hear their point of view, etc. So hopefully that gives you an idea. We are seeing some questions, I believe. Okay. All right, so let's get back to why we are doing all of this. So here is my big hypothesis, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. But going forward, I think the reliance on campus placements is going to be difficult because one, especially the class of 2020, the current fourth yearites or the fifth yearites in the audience, um, historically, our whole model in India has been work extremely hard, get into a top college, and then all your miseries will end because companies will come and recruit you, whether it's your IIT, IIM, ISB, anything else, right? It's a model. However, I think that you can't rely on that system forever, especially when there are pandemics like this. Also, what about your next job after that? What about the job after that? So the sure shot way of getting a job is to get a referral. And there's a lot of data here. Again, I'm showing you some source from LinkedIn itself. So 85% of jobs, they get filled through employee referrals. So if you have a dream company, and they're not coming to your campus, that shouldn't stop you from applying to them. You should still be able to network, leveraging the weak ties and the other techniques that I will share with you in the last part of the presentation to basically get in front of the recruiter. This is like the holy grail of ideal networking. And all my jobs that I've got it, except for the first one on campus, I've got it through a referral. Literally, like somebody at the company said, here is Vishnu's CV, please take a look at it. And they got me the interview. Some more data to convince you. If you look at like the various stages of hiring and how applicants have, how many applicants by channel. So internet job board, firm website, blah, blah, blah. Almost, only 6% are applying through referral by current employee. But when you look at the final hired column, nearly 30% are coming from this channel. So I'm a big fan of 80-20. So if you focus on this channel, you have a higher return on your time. So try and be in this 6% if you can. That doesn't mean don't apply online, but I think the smart person will do this. So then the question is, but Vishnu, I'm in KGP. How will I connect to somebody who's in like New York or London or Bangalore working at a company? That's what this slide is for. So again, get on LinkedIn because that's where most of these people who are 10 years or 5 years out from college in those companies are. So they are most likely on LinkedIn. So you want to contact them. And initially, obviously, when you write to them, keep it simple. So these are some tips: a maximum 75 to 100 words. Make the human connection first. Ask for their insight. Don't ask for a job right away. If you like somebody who's a product manager at, let's say, a Swiggy or any other company in India, write to them saying, hey, I love what you've done so far. I'm contemplating a career in product management. I'm a graduating student from IIT KGP. I would love to talk to you. May I ask you a question? And don't mention jobs. Don't send CVs at this stage. If you find their email address, I think it's not impossible to find the person's email address, the official email address today. Or otherwise, you can just connect with them on LinkedIn. You've got 299 characters to tell your story. Just get to the point and then briefly introduce yourself and talk about something which is a common. See, similarity. We are now leveraging the principle for our favor. Most people like to connect with people that they have something in common with. This something could be an engineer, could be another IIT student or another STEM student, BITS, NIT, whatever, plus California, Berkeley. So they have that affiliation or interest in something common, and then you connect with them. Remember, your goal is to first get a referral and then get an interview if you're in the recruiting game. So then the next question is, what do I ask? So I've connected with this person and they've graciously said, fine, I'll give you 15 minutes of my time. Now, what do I ask them, Vishnu, is your question. So this whole conversation, let's call it an informational interview because you're not trying to get the job. And it's an informational interview where you're trying to understand about the company that they work in, the company's culture, what their forthcoming product launches are. And so how do you prepare for it? So you basically read the company financials, read the CEO interviews, read their blog, about us, news section, and and then you can ask them about industry trends, about their insights, uh, certainly company culture. There's a very powerful tool called Business Model Canvas. I won't have the time to go into it today, but Punya will ping you the link. Definitely read that, because that's a great way to capture the attention of the founders of the company, because it's a tool that makes you think about the entire business in one sheet. So you will stand out from the regular person who just writes an email, hey, I'd like to talk to you. And then finally, how to follow up. So that we'll also go into that shortly. In the call, let's say you get the phone call or the Zoom call, don't try to be an expert, don't be argumentative, you don't feel the pressure to know more than that person. You won't. Just be in a listening mode, have an open mind, and then ask them questions, genuine questions, to see if that industry is for you or not. Almost like a day in the life of a product manager type questions, right? I have noticed that some of us, especially the STEM guys, I mean, one of your colleagues also mentioned they're very shy. So I've literally like come up with a small talk algorithm for those of you who don't know what to say to a complete stranger. So here is what you can do. Remember, the goal is to build likability. The goal is, that's it. It's as simple as that. Somebody should like you because of that 10-minute conversation with you. So step number one, literally, you can ask them the question, how's your day going so far? Very simple, super open-ended. If there's somebody who likes to talk a lot, they will give you like a long answer. I got up, I went for a run, I had a lovely cup of coffee that I made myself, blah, blah, blah. That long answer gives you more information about the person and their nature, so that you can like hopefully pick on the similarity that you have with them. Or if they're busy, they'll say, yeah, I was fine. I'm a bit busy. Let's get to the point. Then you can ask the question, how did you join your organization? Again, notice the first two questions start with how, and they are not binary type questions. So they can't get away with a yes or a no answer. They'll have to speak for a minute or so. It's a story there. And that's very important, because without that, the initial conversation can be super awkward. Like if I say, do you enjoy your job? They'll say yes. Are you having fun at your work? They'll say yes. And that's it. Like the awkward pause and the silence can be a bit rattling. Finally, you can ask, what are you working on right now? And by this point, if you do this 5 or 10 times, you will yourself figure out how to make small talk. Like this algorithm is only to really get you in the first few conversations and get out of your comfort zone. After that, you'll develop your style. For example, I read a lot. So if I meet somebody from South America, from the Spanish speaking part, then I would bring up like books from that part of the world I read. And it's more likely that, when I say books, I literally like the Nobel Prize winning Gabriel Lorca. Or if it's somebody from England, then you talk about other very famous personalities from there. Something to break the ice and build that connection. So this is where your general knowledge sort of helps you. Then finally, you only have one question time for that, and you can just be a bit cheeky and say, why are you so good at your job? Because if somebody's been at, let's say, that company for over a year, then they might be good at the job. Therefore, they're still there. And then it's a bit flattening as well. People like to be flattered, so it's just not the worst thing to do. So that's it. Hopefully, that helps some of the shyer lot among the group. So what is it that you're trying to do with all of this informational interview? This is what I think B schools tend to teach you. So you go there and you do these coffee chats. The purpose of these coffee chats is basically to try and understand about the industry and find that internal advocate, or hopefully the mentor who's going to forward your resume to the recruiter. So you need to move the person that you're speaking from an expert to a mentor framework. So when you first contact them out of blue, it's a random expert in an industry that you're reaching out. But then over a period of time, after the interactions that you have with them, you ask them for trends, you ask them for insights, you can even ask them for advice, like saying, hey, I'm actually thinking of being a product manager 5 years from now. What would you do if you were in my shoes as a third year student at KGP? How can I help my chances, or how can I be better prepared? What resources would you recommend for me? Is there like anything, any periodicals that you review in your industry or read in your industry to be abreast of what's happening? Finally, the last thing you can even ask them like an assignment, saying, okay, now that I'm like super interested, like how do I actually become like a data scientist straight out of undergrad? What kind of assignments should I be doing? Should I go and participate in a hackathon, or should I just do something from? There are so many resources like case study preparation if you're going into the consulting route, and so on and so forth. Important not to sell. Do not sell yourself at this stage. It's too early. Talking time, they should be doing 80% of the talking. You should be doing 20%. Don't argue. Don't try to be a wise person here, because your goal is to build likability, and it's very easy to, if you add friction to the conversation, very few people can pull that off where, they argue with you, but you still end up liking them. I think that's like an advanced level of game. Let's not go there initially. I've even put together like a sample email for you. You can just, well, I'll read it out. You don't have to copy this, but hopefully you'll get the idea. You can just write to somebody, dear Krishna, I'm a recently graduated alumni from this college. And even if they're not from your college, that's fine. You can just say, hey, I'm XYZ, electrical engineering student from KGP. I'm trying to understand more about the e-learning sector, and I was wondering if you could spare a few minutes about your work at Byju's or XYZ corporate education, and about the development of e-learning in general. Always be respectful of their time. If they say, just give them an out. So just say you're looking for like a spare 15, 20 minutes, and you'll totally understand if they're unable to carve out the time, because they're also busy. 8 out of 10 times people will come back to you saying yes. This is a numbers game at this point. And at the end of it, always make sure you thank you and follow up. A lot of people don't complete the loop on this. It's very sad, because you put in all the effort, and at this point, that email exchange will actually serve as an acknowledgement of your interaction with that person. I've literally gone back to emails that I wrote maybe like during my undergrad 10 years ago now on Gmail, and then I responded on that thread, just giving them an update, and some wonderful outcomes have come out of that. So always thank them for their time. Mention the insight that they shared in the chat or the webinar that you liked and you found insightful and useful. And always ask, keep the follow-up control with you. So you can say, is it okay if I follow up in a couple of weeks with some further questions, or after I've done the homework that you've suggested? And definitely follow up, even if it's just to say thank you, and you can end the thing on a nice note. Okay, I'll just take a quick pause here for any further questions. Where can I find this recording? You'll get it later. I think the team will circulate. Aditya, yeah. So let's go with Aditya. Is that a recent phrase? Yeah, maybe you can do that. Yeah, anyone's got a question? Allowed to talk. Okay. Aditya, I think you can unmute yourself now and speak if you wish to.
Hello.
Hey, we can hear you. Go on.
Yeah. Am I audible now?
Yeah.
So my question was, I mean, if we have not done any previous work of that kind, then how we can express ourselves as somebody who is experienced, or if I'm just a beginner, how can I express myself so that they are interested in me?
So you're so nowhere there is this. Everybody has to start at some point, right? And you're already starting at a very good point as a KGP student. So there is no pressure to come across as an expert. As I said, you literally, so in this email that you send, actually let's look at the email, one sample. You can just say, hey, I'm a third year student. I'm trying to understand more about this sector. So you are setting the expectation that you are a beginner. You don't know enough about it, and you are you're looking to get some insights. And your goal is not to impress them with your subject matter expertise. So don't feel the pressure to come across as the expert here. Even people who do product management for 5 years in one industry don't consider themselves as experts, because there's so much to learn and practice, right? So hopefully that answers your question. Like, there's no pressure to know everything. You can literally say, I mean, it's understood. Like when you write an email like this, they know that you're like a third year student. So they people are not silly. They get it that you're reaching out to. Okay, that's a good question. Yeah. So hopefully that clears your doubt.
Yes. Thank you.
Cool. So somebody asked for the thank you process in more detail. So again, just write to us. I'll send you like some examples of the thank you process. Maybe Punya, we can share my email. But essentially, it's a very simple thing. I mean, the format is thank them to say, dear Vishnu, thank you so much for your time on so and so date about your session. I found bullet point 1, 2, 3 very insightful, and I would like to go and investigate further. Is it okay if I follow up, let's say, in a month's time after doing some homework on XYZ topic that we talked about in this webinar? And then definitely follow up within a month. Say, hey Vishnu, hey, hope everything is going well at your end. Can you please let me know if you have another 5 minutes for a chat, or this is what I found, by the way, after my investigation. And then you can share some links with me, some interesting articles with me, because that's what you're doing to create value for me. Remember, ask yourself the question, what can I provide Vishnu? So, and that's how you build that relationship. Okay, so I see we are at the 1 hour mark already. I've got just one last section, so I'm going to breeze through this and then we'll take any questions you have. Okay, so this is the simple one. Most of you may have heard of this framework, the STAR framework. So basically in interviews, they'll have questions like, tell me about a time when you had to overcome significant difficulties and launch a project with the limited resources, and still it was like a stellar success. So the typical format people ask you to use is tell about the situation, an event, a project, or a challenge that you faced, like the Mount Everest. Then your responsibilities and assignments for the situation, your task. Then what did you do, the action, like your plan of action that you did. And finally, the accomplishments. So total revenue increased by 30%, new product launched, money raised, awards won, blah, blah, blah. It's a very old technique. I'm sure most of you may have heard of this. But I'm actually interested in talking about this one. This is the new one. It's not exactly an alternative, but it's a very different technique that enables you to connect, especially for the people that are changing jobs, that are changing industries, that want to like move from X to Y in the long career. This method will be very useful. So the F starts for favorite part, I for improvement, sort, and T is for transition.